Hi, Terry here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is fantastic. I absolutely love it. It's a swing tent fold card. Now it's very difficult to show you this in action with the camera, but basically when it's stood up you just give it a little push and the bee will swing. I'll insert a clip here. I've used the honeybee stamp set and coordinating dies together with some of the Golden Honey Designer Series paper, which is one of the free items available with a qualifying purchase during our current celebration promotion. The card does go completely flat and will fit in a standard size envelope. This is what the side looks like. And on the back I've added a panel where you can write your message. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you are interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. On my original card, the flowers on the paper for the front panel were painted, and I used the Delicata Golden Glitz refill for this, which is now a retired product, although you can actually still purchase this elsewhere. I'm going to apply the ink using an aqua painter. All I'm going to do is squeeze one drop onto a palette, and this is all you need. It goes really far. Add a little water just to make it a bit more mobile, and then apply it to the flowers. And you want to continue in this way until the panel is completely covered, and then just leave it to dry. It doesn't take too long, just a couple of minutes. This is the honeybee stamp set, and I'll be using both bee images, the hive and the thinking of you sentiment day. I'm prepping my cardstock with my embossing buddy to remove any static, and I'm using normal weight Whisper White card for my stamping. I've positioned the hive stamp and picked it up with the plate, and I'm going to ink this up using Daffodil Delight, and I'll stamp it down twice. Then I'll clean off my stamp and ink it up again with Versamark, again stamping down twice. And this is a nice sticky ink that you can emboss with. So I'll then remove my card, cover it with clear embossing powder and replace it in my Stamparatus. Now all the other images and sentiments are going to be stamped in VersaFine black ink, and I can emboss with this ink. So I've positioned my stamps and picked them up with the plate, then I'm inking up with the VersaFine before stamping down. Then again I can cover with clear embossing powder. I'm also going to use the smaller bee to decorate my back mat, and I'm just going to stamp it in opposite corners and again cover with clear powder. Then I can melt all the clear embossing powder using my heat tool. I'm going to colour all the bees with my Stampin' Blends alcohol markers, and I'm using Daffodil Delight. I started with the light marker and covered all the stripes, then I'm just adding a little dark to the ends before blending again with the light. All the bees and the hive will be die cut using the detailed bee dies. And then I'm using one of the ornate frames dies to cut out the sentiment. You would have seen on the measurement screen that you need 2 small pieces of black cardstock, Now the largest of these is for the base for the card. If you use 8.5 inch by 11 inch as your standard card size, then you'll want to score this at 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches and 2.5 inches. My standard card size is A4, so I'm going to score this at 7 centimeters from each end and at 4 centimeters, which is in the middle. So effectively you're scoring at 1 centimeter, 4 centimeters and 7 centimeters. The other piece, the smaller one, is for the mechanism. Now if your standard card is 8.5 by 11 inch, you want to score at 1/4 inch, 1 inch and 1 3/4 inches. Mine standard card is A4, so I need to score at 4 centimeters from each side and again in the middle at 2.5 centimeters. So that will be 1 centimeter, 2.5 centimeters and 4 centimeters. I'm now going to fold on all the score lines. Now for the larger piece, the center fold is a mountain and the other two are valleys. And it's the same for the smaller piece, so fold in half to create your mountain fold, then the other two are valleys to create 2 little feet. The 2 center sections on this mechanism piece need to be glued together. The feet will remain free. Then I'm going to use the smallest hole punch on the crocodile to punch a hole in that glued section. So I'm just marking it with a pencil and then I can punch my hole. And if it's not quite centered, that's fine. I'm also going to punch a hole using that smaller punch on the crocodile on my acetate strip. So you just want to do this towards one end. The aperture has to be cut through 3 layers. So I've got my black card base, then my gold foil layer and my designer series paper. Now this is too much for the die to go through in one go, so I have to do it in stages. I'm going to start by gutting my gold foil mat. All I'm doing is lining it up on the right hand side at approximately 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be precise, and that's 1.2 centimeters. Then I'm going to start 1/2 inch down, so I'm just positioning my blade there, again 1.2 centimeters, and I'm cutting down to the bottom to leave more or less the same size border. And then I'm going to go round the rest of the card, leaving that same-ish border. So effectively I'm creating a frame. The piece that I cut out of the middle I'm going to use to create a frame to go around my aperture. I'm using the rectangle stitched framelit dies for this, and it's the 4th and 5th size down. I'm going to position the larger of the 2 dies first of all and just secure it in place with some purple tape. Then I can position the smaller die in the center of this, making sure that there's an even gap all the way round, and again I can secure this with purple tape. Then I can run it through my die cutting machine. The center piece can be used on another project. And then I can remove my frame from the dies. My card base is in basic black and it's half a standard sheet of card, scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. Now I had started to glue up my gold foil frame here before I realised I wasn't recording. So I'll just finish adding glue all the way round, and then I can position this onto the front of my card base. And then I can add my designer series paper panel. Now because I'm only going to be die cutting through 2 layers now, the die shouldn't struggle to do this at all. The die I'm using is the 5th size down of those stitched rectangle dies, so it's the smallest of the two that I used to create the gold foil frame. Because my card originated from an A4 sheet of card, I'm going to position my die so there's an equal border on the sides and the top. The bottom border will be a little deeper. If you use 8.5 by 11 inch card as your base, I think you'll need to centre this die completely. I think these dies work better for 8.5 by 11 inch users, but just try it and see. Now I've positioned my die, secured it with purple tape, and I'll run this through my die cutting machine. I've added dimensionals onto the back of my sentiment panel, and you'll want to add them to the wings of 4 of your smaller bees. I've also die cut a blank larger bee. The dimensionals I used for the bees are the mini black dimensionals, and I've just cut these in half. Now I shaped my bees just slightly by wrapping them round a pencil, but any sort of round cylindrical object would do. And then I've just added the mini dimensionals to the wings. Now I'm actually shaping and adding the dimensionals to my 5th bee here, and I didn't need to do any of this, so I will remove those dimensionals later and flatten my bee back out. So just shape and add dimensionals to 4. I'm going to add my aperture frame and also my message panel to the back of the card while the card base is still flat. Once you've added the mechanism, you do get some bulk, which makes it a little more tricky to add these. It can still be done, it's fine, but it's easier to add them now. So I've applied glue to the back of my gold foil frame and applied that around the aperture, and now I'm adding glue to my back panel, and I'll add that to the reverse of the card base. Before I add my remaining designer series paper layer to the inside of the card, I'm going to secure the base onto the back panel and also position the mechanism. That way my designer series paper layer will cover most of it. Now you want to add glue to one side of the base section, and I'm going to position mine so it's on the inside of the card. You can position it so it's on the outside of the card if you want to, but I would do that before you add the back panel so that bottom edge is covered. So I'm going to add my glue to one of those narrow sections on the end, and then I'm going to position this at the bottom of my back panel on the inside. Now the fold on your base piece will meet the bottom edge of your back panel. To position the mechanism, I'm just going to add glue to the bottom of the little feet, and then I'll position that over the score line. But first of all, you want to mark in pencil the halfway point on both front and back panels, and do this about roughly ½ inch down. So I've got 2 pencil marks here showing the halfway point of my card. Now I'm going to add glue to those little feet, and then I'm going to position this so the center point of this little mechanism will go over the score line, and you'll have a foot either side, so one on each panel. Now you want to ensure that wherever you've punched that hole, that is in line with your 2 pencil marks. So if you haven't centered that hole, it doesn't matter. You just align it with the 2 pencil marks. I've erased the pencil marks, although they won't show on the finished card anyway, so you don't have to. And now I can add glue to my designer series paper panel and position that, and it will cover the join on the base section and also one of the feet on the mechanism, so it just makes things a little tidier. I'm going to use one of our metallic brads to secure the acetate, and I'm just using the smallest size in gold. Now you want to make sure that the head of the brad is bigger than the hole you punched. Okay, it's very important, otherwise it'll just come out. So I'm threading my brad through the hole, and then I'm adding my strip of acetate on top, and then I can open the little prongs. You don't want to make this tight, so you need to leave those prongs nice and loose so the acetate strip can move freely. You see here I've got them too tight, so I need to loosen it. Now I found that the top part of my acetate was catching on my card here, so I'm just going to cut a tiny strip off. I obviously punched my hole too far down, and then I'm happy with it. I can now secure the large bee to the acetate. Now you want to test this first of all, because you might need to trim off a little bit of acetate, but mine looked fine. My bee would be positioned on the bottom of it and about halfway down that panel. I'm going to secure it by using a couple of glue dots, and I'm just placing these onto the bottom of the acetate strip. Then I'm making sure that's hanging just straight down, and I can position my bee on top. I'm now going to position the blank bee behind my coloured bee. Now the bee is not symmetrical, so you cannot position these back to back. The die cuts have to go back to front. So I've added glue to the front of my blank die cut, and then I can just position that behind my coloured bee, and this will add a little weight and help it swing, but also secure it firmly to that acetate. I can now attach the base to the bottom of the front panel. So I'm adding glue to that narrow strip, and then I can actually press the base flat and close my front panel on top of it. And then I can just check that that fold line is aligned with the bottom of the front panel. I can now add all the other elements to the front of the card. And that's it, my card's now finished. And here's another look at my original one, pretty much identical. I enjoyed making this card so much that I made several more as well. This one uses the little ladybug stamp set and the painted poppies stamp set, together with the Peaceful Poppies Designer Series paper. For this next card, I used the Butterfly Gala stamp set for the butterflies and the painted poppies stamp set for the poppies on the inside panel. I also used my homemade cloud stencil on the inside panel. If you're interested in how I created this stencil, I'll leave a link to a video showing you how I did it in the top right of the screen. The paper is again from the Peaceful Poppies pack. And finally, I used this little piggy stamp set for this card. I've also used my cloud stencil again, and the birds came from the Beautiful Moments stamp set. And with this one, I didn't put the frame on the edge of the aperture. I set it back a bit, so I created a little bit bigger of a frame. Here's a quick look at all the cards in action. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.